delve into the dark origins and profound impact of the 7 deadly sins. The historical and theological origins of the 7 deadly sins are deeply rooted in early Christian thought and the development of moral theology. The concept of deadly sins can be traced back to the early Christian monastic tradition, particularly among the Desert Fathers, who were the first to categorize these vices as fundamental human weaknesses. These early ascetics, living in isolation in the deserts of Egypt, sought to understand and combat the vices that led believers away from a virtuous life. One of the earliest contributions to the classification of sins comes from Evagrius Ponticus, a 4th century monk and theologian. Evagrius identified 8 evil thoughts or logismoi that he believed were the root of all sinful behavior: gluttony, fornication, avarice, sorrow, anger, acedia, spiritual sloth, vainglory, and pride. His work laid the foundation for later Christian teachings on moral vices and virtues. Building on Evagrius's framework, John Cassian, a 5th century monk and theologian, introduced these concepts to the Western Christian world. In his writings, particularly the Institutes and Conferences, Cassian emphasized the practical and spiritual struggles against these vices. His teachings significantly influenced the Western monastic tradition and the development of medieval Christian thought on morality. The list of 8 evil thoughts was later refined by Pope Gregory I, also known as Gregory the Great, in the 6th century. Gregory reduced Evagrius's list to 7, combining vainglory with pride and adding envy. He categorized these 7 as capital sins, meaning they were the principal sources of other sins and moral failings. Gregory's list included pride, envy, wrath, sloth, avarice, gluttony, and lust. His influential writings, particularly the Moralia and Job, helped solidify the concept of the 7 deadly sins in Western Christian thought. The theological significance of the 7 deadly sins was further elaborated by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. In his seminal work, the Summa Theologica, Aquinas provided a detailed analysis of each sin, exploring their nature, causes, and consequences. He argued that these sins were deadly because they led to the spiritual death of the soul by turning individuals away from God's grace and towards selfishness and immorality. Aquinas' systematic approach to the 7 deadly sins influenced the moral teachings of the Catholic Church and became a cornerstone of Christian ethics. Throughout the Middle Ages, the 7 deadly sins were a central theme in Christian art, literature, and preaching. They were often depicted in sermons and writings as a means to educate the faithful about the dangers of moral vices and the importance of cultivating virtues. The sins were also personified in various artistic representations, such as in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, where they were depicted as obstacles to be overcome on the soul's journey toward God. The enduring legacy of the 7 deadly sins lies in their ability to encapsulate fundamental human struggles with vice and virtue. They continue to serve as a moral framework for understanding and combating the temptations that lead individuals away from a righteous life. Pride is often regarded as the most dangerous of the 7 deadly sins, primarily because it is the root from which all other sins arise. It involves an inflated sense of one's own importance, achievements, and abilities, leading to an excessive self-love that disregards the rightful place of others and, crucially, God. Theologically, pride is seen as the original sin, exemplified by Lucifer's rebellion against God. Lucifer, an archangel, was cast out of heaven for his prideful desire to usurp God's throne, illustrating the destructive potential of this sin. Pride's insidious nature lies in its ability to mask itself as virtue. Confidence, ambition, and self-respect can easily morph into arrogance, entitlement, and a sense of superiority. This transformation is subtle, making pride difficult to recognize and root out. The biblical story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden provides a poignant example. Their desire to be like God, knowing good and evil, led them to disobey God's command, resulting in their fall from grace. This narrative underscores pride's ability to lead individuals away from humility and obedience to divine will. Historically, pride has been condemned across various cultures and religions. In Christianity, it is the sin that most directly opposes the virtue of humility. Humility, or the recognition of one's dependence on God, is considered essential for spiritual growth. Pride, by contrast, leads to self-sufficiency and the neglect of one's need for divine grace. This opposition is starkly portrayed in the teachings of Jesus, who emphasized the importance of humility and warned against the perils of pride. The consequences of pride are manifold and far-reaching. In relationships, pride fosters discord and conflict, as it breeds an unwillingness to admit faults or consider others' perspectives. It creates barriers to genuine communication and reconciliation, leading to isolation and broken relationships. In a broader societal context, pride can manifest as nationalism, racism, and other forms of prejudice, where one group considers itself superior to others. These attitudes lead to social division, injustice, and violence. In spiritual life, pride is particularly destructive because because it prevents individuals from recognizing their need for God's mercy and guidance. It blinds people to their own flaws and limits their capacity for growth and repentance. The parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, told by Jesus, highlights this danger. The Pharisee's pride in his own righteousness prevented him from seeking God's forgiveness, whereas the tax collector's humility led to his justification before God. Addressing pride requires a conscious effort to cultivate humility. This involves a realistic assessment of one's abilities and achievements, recognizing that all talents and successes are ultimately gifts from God. Practices such as self-examination, prayer, and acts of service can help in developing a humble disposition. By acknowledging our limitations and dependencies, we open ourselves to the transformative power of grace and foster a spirit of gratitude and compassion. Envy is a deeply corrosive emotion that arises from a sense of discontent or covetousness towards someone else's qualities, possessions, or achievement. Unlike jealousy, which is the fear of losing something one possesses, envy is rooted in the desire to have what belongs to another. This sin is particularly insidious because it not only disrupts personal contentment, but also corrodes relationships and undermines social harmony. Theologically, envy is condemned in the Bible and other religious texts as a destructive force that leads to further sin. One of the most prominent examples of envy in the Bible is the story of Cain and Abel. Cain, envious of God's favor towards his brother Abel, allowed his resentment to fester, ultimately leading him to commit the first murder. This narrative illustrates how envy, if unchecked, can escalate into violence and severe moral transgression. Historically, envy has been recognized as a potent and harmful emotion across various cultures. In Christianity, it is one of the 7 deadly sins, highlighting its severe spiritual ramification. Envy directly opposes the virtue of kindness and contentment, and it undermines the sense of community and mutual support that is fundamental Christian teaching. Envy blinds individuals to their blessings, causing a perpetual state of dissatisfaction, a harmful focus on others' fortunes. In personal relationships, envy breeds distrust and animosity, and erode friendships and familial bonds, as the envious person often harbors resentment and ill will towards those they perceive as more fortunate. This emotion leads to a distorted perception of others, fostering a competitive rather than a cooperative spirit. Socially, envy can manifest in destructive behaviors such as slander, sabotage, and the spreading of malicious rumors, all intended to diminish the envied person's success or happiness. Psychologically, envy is damaging to mental health. It creates a cycle of negativity and low self-esteem as individuals become fixated on what they lack rather than appreciating what they have. This fixation can lead to chronic unhappiness and a sense of inadequacy, as the envious person constantly compares themselves unfavorably to others. Envy also prevents personal growth and self-improvement, as it focuses on external factors rather than internal development and fulfillment. Addressing envy requires cultivating gratitude and self-awareness. Recognizing and valuing one's own gifts and achievements can help counteract the feelings of inadequacy that fuel envy. Practices such as keeping a gratitude journal, engaging in acts of kindness, and consciously celebrating others' successes can foster a more positive and generous mindset. Spiritual practices, such as prayer and meditation, can also provide a broader perspective, helping individuals see beyond their immediate desires and fostering a deeper sense of contentment and spiritual peace. Envy's corrosive nature underscores the importance of fostering virtues that directly counteract it, such as charity, empathy, and contentment. By focusing on these virtues, individuals can build healthier relationships, cultivate a more positive self-image, and contribute to a more supportive and harmonious community. Envy may be a natural human emotion, but through conscious effort and spiritual growth, it can be managed and transformed into a catalyst for personal and communal improvement. Wrath, or uncontrolled anger, is one of the 7 deadly sins and is characterized by intense feelings of rage and hatred that can lead to destructive actions. It is a powerful emotion that, when left unchecked, can result in significant harm to oneself and others. Theologically, wrath is condemned in the Bible and other religious texts, as it leads to actions that are contrary to the teachings of love, patience, and forgiveness. Wrath can blind individuals to reason, prompting irrational decisions and behaviors that damage relationships and communities. One of the most notable examples of wrath in the Bible is the story of Moses striking the rock in anger. Despite being instructed by God to speak to the rock to bring forth water for the Israelites, Moses, in a moment of frustration with the people's complaints, struck the rock twice with his staff. This act of disobedience, driven by anger, resulted in Moses being denied entry into the Promised Land. This narrative underscores the severe consequences that can arise from wrath, even when one's intentions are otherwise noble. Historically, wrath has been recognized as a destructive force in various cultures and philosophy. It is seen as a passion that disturbs the mind's tranquility, leading to conflicts, wars, and personal vendettas. In many traditions, including Christianity, Buddhism, and Stoicism, teachings emphasize the importance of controlling anger and cultivating patience and compassion. These teachings highlight that while anger itself is a natural human emotion, the expression of wrath through harmful actions is what must be guarded against. In personal relationships, wrath can be particularly damaging. It often leads to hurtful words and actions that are difficult to retract, causing long-lasting damage to trust and intimacy. Wrath-driven behaviors such as physical violence, verbal abuse, and passive-aggressive actions can create a toxic environment, making reconciliation and healing challenging. Moreover, wrath can escalate minor disagreements into major conflicts, further fracturing relationships and communities. Psychologically, wrath has detrimental effects on mental health. Chronic anger and hostility are linked to a range of health problems, including hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and weakened immune function. The stress associated with wrath can lead to anxiety, depression, and a general sense of unrest. Furthermore, wrath can cloud judgment, leading to decisions made in the heat of the moment that may be regretted later. Addressing wrath involves developing emotional regulation and practicing forgiveness. Techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, and mindfulness can help individuals manage their anger before it escalates into wrath. It is also important to cultivate empathy and understanding, seeing situations from others' perspectives to reduce the impulse to react with anger. Forgiveness, both of oneself and others, is crucial in breaking the cycle of wrath and fostering a more peaceful and harmonious life. Sloth, one of the 7 deadly sins, is characterized by a lack of effort, enthusiasm, and commitment to tasks, particularly those that require moral, spiritual, or physical exertion. It goes beyond mere laziness, encompassing a broader sense of spiritual and moral indifference. Sloth is seen as a failure to utilize one's talents and fulfill one's responsibilities, leading to a stagnation of growth and progress in various aspects of life. Theologically, sloth is condemned because it reflects a disengagement from God's purpose for one's life. It is an avoidance of the work and discipline necessary for spiritual growth and a meaningful life. In the Bible, sloth is often warned against in the wisdom literature. Proverbs, for instance, contains numerous admonitions against laziness, such as, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise." Proverbs 6:6. This verse highlights the value of diligence and the consequences of neglecting one's duties. Historically, sloth has been viewed as a significant moral failing in various cultures. In medieval Christianity, it was considered a sin because it led to the neglect of religious obligations and the failure to live up to one's potential. Monastic communities, in particular, emphasized the importance of labor and prayer as means of combating sloth and fostering a disciplined spiritual life. Sloth was seen as not just a personal failing, but a social one, as it could lead to the breakdown of communal responsibilities and support system. In personal life, sloth manifests as procrastination, avoidance, and a lack of ambition. It results in missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. Individuals who succumb to sloth may find themselves stuck in a cycle of inactivity and dissatisfaction, unable to achieve their goals or make meaningful contributions to their communities. This lack of engagement can lead to feelings of worthlessness and a decline in mental health, as the absence of purposeful activity is often associated with depression and anxiety. In a broader societal context, sloth can lead to economic and social stagnation. When individuals or groups fail to contribute effectively, it impacts productivity and innovation. Societies that do not value hard work and diligence may struggle with issues such as poverty and inequality. As the collective effort needed, progress and development is lacking. Combating sloth involves cultivating discipline, motivation, and a sense of purpose. Setting clear goals and breaking them down into manageable tasks can help individuals overcome inertia and take action. Developing a routine that includes regular physical activity, intellectual engagement, and spiritual practices can also counteract the tendencies of sloth. Encouragement and accountability from a supportive community can play a significant role in maintaining motivation and commitment to personal and communal responsibilities. Spiritually, overcoming sloth requires a renewal of one's commitment to faith and the recognition of the value of one's contributions to the world. Prayer, meditation, and other spiritual disciplines can help individuals connect with their deeper purpose and inspire them to act. Recognizing that diligence and effort are forms of honoring God's gifts can provide the motivation needed needed to overcome sloth. Greed, one of the 7 deadly sins, is an intense and selfish desire for wealth, power, or possession. It goes beyond the natural human inclination for self-preservation and crosses into an insatiable longing for more, often at the expense of others. Theologically, greed is condemned in the Bible and other religious texts because it prioritizes material wealth over spiritual well-being and the welfare of others. It is seen as a form of idolatry, where the pursuit of riches becomes more important than the pursuit of a righteous and meaningful life. The Bible frequently warns against the dangers of greed. One notable example is the parable of the rich fool, found in Luke 12:16-21. In this parable, Jesus tells the story of a wealthy man who hoards his abundant harvests without regard for others or for his spiritual life. God condemns him, calling him a fool for storing up earthly wealth but neglecting his spiritual riches. This story illustrates the futility of greed and the importance of being rich toward God. Historically, greed has been recognized as a destructive force in various cultures. In medieval Christianity, it was seen as a sin that led to social inequality and corruption. Greed was believed to corrupt the soul, leading individuals away from the virtues of charity and humility. Philosophers such as Aristotle and Aquinas discussed the moral implications of greed, arguing that it disrupted the natural order of society and human relation. In personal life, greed manifests in an unending pursuit of more, whether it be money, power, or status. This relentless drive often leads to unethical behavior such as deceit, theft, and exploitation. Individuals consumed by greed may prioritize their own gain over the well-being of others, resulting in damaged relationships and a lack of trust. Greed can lead to a life of constant dissatisfaction, as no amount of wealth or power ever seems sufficient. On a societal level, greed can have devastating consequences. It contributes to economic inequality, as resources become concentrated in the hands of a few, while many others struggle to meet their basic needs. Greed-driven behaviors can lead to financial crises, as seen in the 2008 global economic downturn, which was largely fueled by the reckless and unethical pursuit of profit by financial institutions. This sin also fosters corruption in politics and business, undermining trust in institutions and leading to widespread social discontent. Addressing greed involves fostering a mindset of contentment and generosity, cultivating gratitude for what one has rather than constantly striving for more, and counteract the impulses of greed. Practices such as charitable giving and acts of kindness help to shift the focus from self-centered accumulation to the well-being of others. Spiritual teachings often emphasize the importance of detachment from material possessions and the value of inner richness. Spiritually, overcoming greed requires a reorientation of values, recognizing the transient nature of material wealth and the lasting importance of spiritual and relational well-being can help individuals find true fulfillment. Engaging in practices such as prayer, meditation, and reflection on one's purpose and contributions to the world can foster a deeper sense of contentment and reduce the grip of greed. Gluttony, one of the 7 deadly sins, is characterized by an excessive and selfish consumption of food, drink, or other material goods. It is not merely the act of overeating, but represents a deeper lack of self-control and an insatiable desire for indulgence. Theologically, gluttony is condemned because it reflects a prioritization of bodily pleasures over spiritual well-being and moral responsibility. It is seen as a form of idolatry, where the pursuit of sensory satisfaction becomes more important than the pursuit of a virtuous and disciplined life. The Bible addresses gluttony in several passages, warning against its dangers and encouraging moderation and self-control. Proverbs 23:20-21 cautions, "Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat, for drunkards and gluttons become poor, and drowsiness clothes them in rags." This verse highlights the consequences of overindulgence, which can lead to physical, financial, and moral decline. Historically, gluttony has been recognized as a vice in various cultures. In medieval Christianity, it was considered a sin because it diverted individuals from their spiritual duties and responsibilities. The teachings of the Church emphasize the importance of fasting and moderation as means of cultivating self-discipline and spiritual growth. Philosophers such as Aristotle also discussed the moral implications of gluttony, arguing that it disrupted the balance of a virtuous life by placing undue emphasis on bodily pleasures. In personal life, gluttony manifests as a compulsive behavior that seeks comfort and satisfaction in excessive consumption. This behavior can lead to various health issues, including obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Beyond physical health, gluttony affects mental and emotional well-being. It often stems from deeper psychological issues such as stress, anxiety, or depression, where food or drink is used as a coping mechanism. This creates a cycle of overindulgence and guilt, further exacerbating the underlying problems. On a societal level, gluttony contributes to issues such as food waste and environmental degradation. In a world where resources are unevenly distributed, the excessive consumption by some contrasts starkly with the deprivation faced by others. Gluttony also feeds into the culture of consumerism, where the relentless pursuit of more leads to unsustainable practices and a disregard for the broader impact on society and the planet. Addressing gluttony involves cultivating moderation and mindfulness. Developing a healthy relationship with food and other material goods is essential for overcoming this vice. Practices such as mindful eating, which encourages awareness and appreciation of the food consumed, can help individuals gain control over their eating habits. Setting realistic goals for a balanced diet and lifestyle, coupled with regular physical activity, can also combat the tendencies of gluttony. Spiritually, overcoming gluttony requires a shift in focus from bodily pleasures to spiritual nourishment. Engaging in practices such as fasting, prayer, and meditation can help individuals develop greater self-discipline and a deeper connection to their faith. These practices encourage reflection on the true sources of fulfillment and contentment, which go beyond material consumption. Lust is characterized by an intense and uncontrolled desire for sexual pleasure. It goes beyond the natural and healthy expression of human sexuality, leading to the objectification of others and the pursuit of gratification at the expense of moral integrity and relational respect. Theologically, lust is condemned because it distorts the sacredness of human sexuality, which is intended to reflect love, intimacy, and the potential for creating life. Lust reduces this profound aspect of human experience to mere physical pleasure, detached from emotional and spiritual connection. In the Bible, lust is frequently warned against as a destructive force. Jesus emphasizes the seriousness of lust in Matthew 5:28, stating, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." This teaching highlights that lust is not just a physical act, but begins in the heart and mind, corrupting one's thoughts and intentions. The story of David and Bathsheba is a profound biblical example of the consequences of lust. David's lust for Bathsheba led to adultery, deception, and murder, ultimately bringing calamity upon his household. Historically, lust has been recognized as a vice that undermines moral and social order. In medieval Christianity, it was seen as a sin that led individuals away from their spiritual duties and responsibilities. Church promoted chastity and marital fidelity as virtues to counteract the destructive potential of lust. Philosophers such as Augustine and Aquinas discussed the moral implications of lust, arguing that it disrupted the proper use of human sexuality, which should be guided by reason and aligned with the greater good. In personal life, lust manifests in various ways, including addiction to pornography, infidelity, and a general disregard for the emotional and relational aspects of sexuality. These behaviors can lead to significant personal and relational harm. Individuals consumed by lust often experience feelings of guilt, shame, and emptiness, as the pursuit of physical pleasure fails to fulfill deeper emotional and spiritual needs. Lust-driven actions can damage trust, intimacy, and mutual respect in relationships, leading to broken families and heartache. On a societal level, the normalization of lust contributes to the objectification and exploitation of individuals, particularly women. It fosters a culture that prioritizes physical appearance and sexual conquest over genuine connection and respect. This cultural shift can lead to an increase in sexual violence, harassment, and the commodification of human bodies. Lust, when unchecked, undermines the values of dignity and respect that are essential for a just and compassionate society. Addressing lust involves cultivating virtues such as chastity, self-control, and respect for others. Developing a healthy and holistic understanding of human sexuality is crucial for overcoming this vice. Education about the emotional, relational, and spiritual dimensions of sexuality can help individuals appreciate its profound significance beyond physical pleasure. Practices such as mindfulness and self-reflection can also aid in managing lustful thoughts and impulses, fostering a more balanced and respectful approach to relationships. Spiritually, overcoming lust requires a commitment to purity and a focus on building genuine connections with others. Engaging in practices such as prayer, meditation, and participation in a faith community can provide support and accountability. These practices encourage individuals to seek fulfillment in ways that honor their values and respect the dignity of others. The consequences of the 7 deadly sins are profound, affecting both individuals and societies throughout history and in contemporary times. Each sin, pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, and lust, leads to significant moral and spiritual decay, with cascading effects that disrupt personal well-being and social harmony. Pride, considered the root of all sins, manifests in arrogance and self-centeredness. Biblically, pride led to Lucifer's fall from heaven and the expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden. In modern context, pride fosters a culture of narcissism and entitlement, undermining cooperation and mutual respect. It can lead to destructive behaviors such as hubris in leadership, resulting in poor decision-making and the downfall of communities and organizations. Envy, characterized by resentment towards others' success, causes profound discord. In the Bible, Cain's envy of Abel's favor with God led to the first murder. Today, envy drives unhealthy competition, eroding trust and collaboration, contributes to social inequalities, and fosters an environment where personal achievements are devalued, leading to widespread dissatisfaction and mental health issues. Wrath, or uncontrolled anger, leads to violence and conflict. Biblical narratives, such as Moses striking the rock in anger, show how wrath can result in severe consequences and loss. In contemporary settings, wrath manifests in domestic violence, road rage, and escalating conflicts, contributing to societal unrest and a pervasive sense of insecurity. It hinders constructive dialogue and reconciliation, perpetuating cycles of hatred and retribution. Sloth, or the neglect of responsibilities, results in stagnation and decay. Theologically, sloth is condemned for leading to spiritual lethargy and disengagement from God's purpose. In modern life, sloth results in wasted potential and missed opportunities, contributing to personal and professional failure. It exacerbates societal issues such as poverty and unemployment, as collective progress stalls due to widespread apathy and inaction. Greed, an insatiable desire for wealth and possessions, leads to exploitation and corruption. Biblically, Judas Iscariot's betrayal of Jesus for 30 pieces of silver epitomizes greed's destructive power. Today, greed drives corporate malfeasance, environmental degradation, and economic disparities, fuels corruption in governance and business, undermining trust in institutions, and perpetuating cycles of poverty and inequality. Gluttony, the overindulgence in food and drink, signifies a lack of self-control. Biblical warnings against gluttony emphasize the spiritual and physical consequences of excessive consumption. In contemporary society, gluttony contributes to health crises such as obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. It reflects and reinforces consumerist culture, leading to waste and environmental harm as resources are excessively consumed without regard for sustainability. Lust, an excessive craving for sexual pleasure, objectifies individuals and distorts human relationships. Biblically, the story of David and Bathsheba illustrates how lust leads to adultery, deception, and murder. In modern times, lust fuels industries that exploit human sexuality, such as pornography and sex trafficking. It undermines the sanctity of relationships, leading to infidelity, broken families, and emotional trauma. The collective impact of the 7 deadly sins on society is profound, leading to widespread moral and ethical decay. These sins undermine the fabric of communities, fostering environments where selfishness, dishonesty, and disrespect prevail.